Throughout our entire relationship, she never once ran with me. I met my mistress that evening when my wife was on another date. I was leaving the bookstore. That's where I spent the evening when this whole thing started. My future mistress, at the time, was being harassed by a short, stocky guy who was yelling at her. When he grabbed her arm and roughly spun her around, I instinctively intervened. I practiced judo, although nothing special. I managed to restrain him and accidentally dislocated his wrist. It turned out she had gotten him fired for harassment, and he was very angry. After that, she insisted on buying me coffee as a thank you, and I agreed. As for her reaction to the open marriage, she was hesitant at first. She didn't want to be a homewrecker, but when she learned about my wife's actions, she threw caution to the wind. I have two versions of the story I'll tell my grandchildren. I saved your grandmother from a scoundrel, and she fell into my arms, or your grandmother once took a year off to try out a bunch of guys, and I, her husband, was supposedly okay with it. Update 1. The psychologist seemed pleasant and experienced to me. She seemed unbiased and genuinely willing to help. Even though it was our first session, my wife took the opportunity to lay out the whole story. She admitted that her group of friends had made her wonder if she'd missed out on something in life. Since she married her first boyfriend and had no other experience, she hadn't lived like some of the amazing women in her circle. If I remember parts, some were divorced, and not one was married. The therapist pointed out that this often has a destructive effect on marriage. My wife seemed to agree, then added that after the new manager appeared, some friends egged her on to see where things would go, a childish chance to explore herself and get to know herself. My wife said she felt guilty, so she hesitated to get involved with him, but one of the divorced friends suggested the idea of an open marriage as a loophole, saying some couples even become stronger afterward. So she talked me into opening the marriage and plunged into this whole adventure. It was intoxicating, exciting, but had no real meaning, and then she began to doubt her motives. She said she saw the pain in my eyes but convinced herself it was just an adventure. She added that she would never forgive herself. She wanted a new, incredible experience, so the scale of what happened didn't sink in until she saw the change in me. At first, she thought that since I also started going on dates, I would gradually come to terms with our situation and everything would be fine. But everything changed when my mistress became a permanent fixture in my adventure. Apparently, started smiling for no reason again. My eyes lit up when a message came in. I'd leave the room happily to answer a call. She says she suddenly felt like she'd been punched in the gut and started having panic attacks for no particular reason. She went to her friends for advice, but they replied that this was a normal husband's reaction in such an adventure. When the same divorced friend who suggested it all said, "Seems like his mistress makes him happy," that's when it hit her. The thought suddenly became real, that another woman, not her, was giving me joy. This made her feel sick, almost to the point of fainting. She realized how absurd it all was and begged them to help her get me back, but they just told her if it was so hard, why did she propose opening the marriage in the first place? Then she realized these women were toxic, a threat to our marriage and our whole life, so she rushed to get me back with all her might. For my part, I didn't say much, but I told the psychologist that I still have a mistress. The therapist said we wouldn't find any solution while my mistress was hanging around and suggested we schedule another session the day after tomorrow. The psychologist also added that few people stay with their first partner for so long, and she got the impression that any difficulties can be overcome. I suspect she wants to make us a successful case. Clarifying what I mean when I say my mistress makes me feel like a man when I have a tough day. I'm met not with cold indifference but with a warm hug, and she's ready to listen attentively. Yes, I have insecurities. She convinces me nothing is unattainable, and most importantly, and this might sound sexist, for which I apologize, she allows me to be the man in the relationship. That is, my mistress believes that women are meant to do what men cannot. Again, I think this is part of her culture. She's sure men aren't as caring and compassionate as women, and therefore, In her opinion, a soft heart can tame a raging volcano. Some Korean proverb, she believes she should take charge in the bedroom and make intimacy fulfilling but never humiliate me or intrude into other areas where I need space. She thinks men's needs are much less than women's and that if they're satisfied, a man will move mountains for a woman. I should add she advocates for equal pay and mutual respect but not for the extremes common in modern society. As I said, it might seem like sexism, but it's more likely a manifestation of the difference between Eastern and Western culture. Update 2. I moved into an apartment that belongs to my brother, and he rents it to me for a laughable price. My brother was willing to let me stay for free, but I refused. Now, a bit about what I found out regarding my wife's behavior and something unpleasant about her. Manager. During the second counseling session, I asked some questions you advised me to ask. First, I asked if she was sure there was absolutely no physical intimacy before opening the marriage. She lowered her eyes and begged me not to make her say it, because as soon as she said it, everything would collapse. But I insisted, and she admitted there was no direct contact, but they pleasured themselves in front of each other. That asshole convinced her that since it wasn't full intercourse, it technically wasn't cheating, saying they were just enjoying each other's beauty. I was shocked. And my wife started trembling and breathing heavily, snot running down her nose as she sobbed and begged for forgiveness. Even the psychologist looked stunned. Disbelief was written on her face. My wife got on her knees and wrapped her arms around my legs, pleading for forgiveness. Second, I then asked what exactly changed her attitude towards the manager. She said that after she started distancing herself from that whole group of friends, he also started behaving differently towards her. And then one day, when she was leaving a meeting and walking past his office, she heard him talking about her with another male colleague. He said he was surprised how easily he managed to seduce her and that she was living proof that still waters run deep. When the colleague asked if he actually liked her, the manager replied she was just pleasant entertainment and that he wasn't even thinking of leaving his fiancée.